Boxingego here. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon on the top of your screen to get notified when the latest new content drops. 1. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button if you're new to the channel. Hit the subscribe button. Also hit the bell icon if you guys like the updates. Today is Monday, which means Monday Mail Day. Today is a special Monday. It is Memorial Day. I just want to send out my shout out to all the people who serve, male and female, to preserve the integrity of this wonderful country. So happy Memorial Day, and hope everyone eats good, spends time with the family. I put a thumb up next to the question I'm going to answer. I don't know how long this particular one will be. Kind of got off to a late start with the holiday, and we're just going to see where this goes. So, first question comes from Ivan Gordillo. Ego, what do you think about Crawford versus Spence? Who wins that one? Truthfully, I don't know. Like, usually with my predictions, I really try to analyze it, you know what I mean? Just to try to give the best fair shake on who will win and whatnot. That's a fight, that's a toss-up, because Crawford has the overall skill, I think, to beat anybody in or around his division. But the big thing is he got hurt by Gamboa at 35, so I do think Errol Spence can hurt him. You know what I mean? I think Errol Spence can hurt any guy at 47, right? So that's a good fight. But Errol Spence versus Kell Brook, he started off slow, and you don't want to let a guy like Crawford get into a rhythm. So that's an extremely difficult fight. Maybe if I had seen Crawford at 47 to see how he looks, to see how he takes a shot, even versus like a Sean Porter or something, that would give me a better indication. I might give a slight edge to Crawford just because he has the overall skills, but I really rate Errol Spence. I like his confidence, and he applies a nasty pressure, cuts off the ring. He's methodical. He's not just mindless coming in. You know what I mean? He's trying to be mindful of what he sees coming at him and stuff. He's a southpaw. Crawford can switch to southpaw, but he can go righty. It's a toss-up fight, really a coin flip. And I'm not just saying that. If I really had a person that come to mind, I would just tell you that. But that's a tough fight. And again, I don't know how Crawford takes a shot. He has a frame to move up, but again, some of those guys are bigger than him, big punchers. But he did rehydrate to 157 versus Felix Diaz, and that's when he was weighing in the day before at 140. So I think Crawford definitely could move up for sure. I don't know, because that's a tough fight. Next question, AMIR Mustafa. Do you think Spence and Thurman should fight at the end of the year when Thurman's elbow is healed, or wait to build up the fight? Personally, I want to see the fight happen at the end of the year, but I wouldn't mind Thurman having a rematch with his mandatory Sean Porter and then fighting Spence in 2018 to let the fight build up a little more. Now, 2017 has been lit. It's been a phenomenal year. So for me, the greedy boxing fan in me would say easily just make it happen this year and then make 2017 just that much more explosive with all these great, crazy matchups that we thought we would never get. But the reality of it, I don't think that fight would happen. And if I was advising Thurman, I would not tell him to fight off of an injury and fight someone who just became a champion, who has that style. Thurman seems susceptible to the body. Spence likes to put on a lot of pressure. And I'm not saying Thurman doesn't have a shot. That's an equal 50-50 fight on paper, stuff like that. But you want to be, this is my thing, like, just as a realist, I want to see both guys fighting at their best. You know what I mean? I don't want to see, if we can help it, ring rust or one unfair advantage, a long layoff and stuff like that, injury. Like, when I seen, this is just an example, Miguel Cotto versus Sergio Martinez. I picked Maravilla Martinez to beat Cotto. I thought he was too big, too crafty. Fair play to Cotto. He did what he had to do. But I don't care what anyone says. Clearly something was wrong with Sergio Martinez, his leg. I mean, he couldn't even stand and put any pressure on it. Just like David Haye versus Tony Bellew. I give props to Bellew because he still signed up. He didn't know that David Haye's Achilles would collapse, so he still signed up for the assignment. So you got to give Cotto and Bellew credit for that, and actually pulling off maybe what people would call upsets or whatnot. But we can't omit what we actually seen. We actually seen injuries that would prohibit them from really even winning, because they could. How are you going to generate power? You can't even walk. You can't even put any pressure on your leg. You know what I mean? You can't stand. Of course you're going to get destroyed. So Keith Thurman, even though he's an elbow injury, he's a guy who throws with velocity, and he's a guy who is athletic, and he likes to pop in and you know what I mean, and throw these nasty shots. So if he has tennis elbow or whatever is wrong with his elbow, I want to see him at his full potential. You know what I mean? I think it's only right. So I think the Porter fight, since that's a style you're familiar with, you already won, that would be good to take care of that. Or even someone lesser than Porter, because Porter's a dog. He's going to stay in your face. He's hungry. He just stopped Berto, and his momentum has not changed. I just interviewed him a couple weeks back. So that might even be too tough of a fight to come back to be honest. Maybe even the Lamont Peterson, a guy who's crafty, who I think is the mandatory for him. But no shade to Peterson. Peterson, to my knowledge, from what I've seen, I don't think he's hitting as hard as Porter, Spence, or Pacquiao at 47. So I think that's what I would go. I would go with Peterson, because that, I believe, takes care of a mandatory obligation. I think he's a mandatory with the WBA, and then Porter's the mandatory with his new WBC belt he got from beating Danny Garcia. So you can handle your WBA, come back to Lamont Peterson's no joke either. He's not no soft touch, but he's new to the division. You know what I mean? He only has one true fight at the 47. I covered that fight. It was on the Broner Granados card. David Avanesian. He's off of, before that fight, he was off a 15-month layoff, and then before that, he fought maybe at some catch weights. Felix Diaz and Danny Garcia fights were at like a little over 140, 143 or so catch weights. So take out your mandatory, and I also take out not the easiest person, because Lamont Peterson's crafty, he's sharp, but he's the newest to the division. You know what I'm saying? Porter's not new to the division. In fact, Porter fought as high as like 165 as an amateur. Spence just got all his confidence. So again, the greedy boxing fan to me, of course, I would say make it this year, but the reality of it, I think it'll probably have to build up a little bit more, and that would make more sense. Next question comes from Aaron Raha. Ego, first of all, I'm a big fan of yours from the UK. Shout out to UK. Y'all been holding boxing down. Just wanted to salute you on producing the best content out there. Thank you. My question is, how do you see Manny Pacquiao doing against Thurman or Spence Jr.? Can he still compete with the best in the division? My answer, see, I'm not trying to sell Pacquiao short. I think he can make competitive fights for sure with anybody. I think he has enough. You can't go in with a veteran like that and expect it to be easy work per se, because Vladimir Klitschko at age 41 gave the much younger Joshua, was Joshua 28, 29 maybe, he gave him his toughest fight as a pro. Knocked him down, made him gas out in the round where Joshua clearly hurt Klitschko. So I would never play a veteran like that and say they're going to be like shark food like that. But I don't think that's Pacquiao's intent. And I'm going off of who he's fighting. He's fighting Jeff Horn. So if Pacquiao thought Thurman, since he is the veteran, if he thought one of these new booties, these rookies like a Thurman, new champion, someone who clearly hasn't been around as long as he has. Pacquiao turned pro in like 93 or something, time 95. So Thurman and Spence just became a champion 2 days ago. So if Pacquiao really felt that and his team felt that, then why wouldn't they fight a Crawford? Why wouldn't they fight Thurman? Why wouldn't they fight a Spence Jr. next? Instead, they are fighting Jeff Horn, who the world by and large hasn't heard of, even diehard boxing fans. So I think Pacquiao, you have to respect him, but I think it's some of the other guys have a strong chance to beat him. Spence Jr. especially, being a southpaw, being that powerful, the body work. Pacquiao's small. I've met him. You know what I mean? He's a small guy. And Thurman just as well, even though he's not a southpaw, he's powerful, and he's going to jump in, and the fact is he can use his legs when he wants to, right? And both of those styles are going to give Pacquiao problems, because Thurman he moved a lot versus Danny Garcia. So if he did that for the whole fight and was popping in on Pacquiao, I don't think Pacquiao would enjoy that. And they're both bigger and stronger, you know what I mean? Thurman has a recorded knockout at like 153 against Carlos Quintana. Spence Jr. says making 147 is a challenge at times. You know what I mean? He says everybody struggles. He said that's not my natural. Like, I wouldn't just be walking around at 47 if I wasn't fighting. So it goes to show you, Pacquiao, he's kind of close to his walking around weight. Next question, Markel Jackson. What up, Ego? What's up? I appreciate the work you put in. Definitely the best boxing channel by far. You always keep it 100, so thank you for that. Fantasy matchup question. Spence versus Crawford at 147. I know Crawford at 140 now, but I think it's likely he will move up soon. Who would you pick and why? Again, I really do not know, because there's still questions. Anytime a fighter moves up, there's going to be questions. Like, you look at Andre Ward, clearly the best at 168. Won the Super 6, beat Chad Dawson, right? He was the man. But as he moved up in 175, he fought Sullivan Barrera, and he did good in that fight. I covered that fight live. Covered his fight with Alexander Brand live, and also his fight with Kovalev. But you get to the Kovalev fight, and that was a much tougher fight for him, just because Kovalev is naturally bigger. He's clearly one of the top 3 punchers at light heavyweight. So things like that change everything. You know what I mean? Whereas guys, if you're about the same size, skill for skill, and they can't see you, then that's one thing. But when you move up, and guys can be less skilled than you, but maybe stronger or bigger or tougher, and sometimes that can win the fight too. You know what I mean? I had Ward winning, but some people had Kovalev winning. So Crawford's highly skilled, he's an assassin. I just want to see it, because again, he's going up with 47's packed. There's killers. So Crawford is smart money for anyone, so it's really hard for me to pick against Crawford. But the Spence fight, just where Spence is at, just his size and stuff, that could be a very difficult fight where either guy could win. I really see that. I see either guy winning, because like I said, Crawford has been hurt at 135 before, and Brook landed some good shots on Spence Jr. and he kept on trucking. And I mean, I would definitely say Brook, based on his size, whatever he rehydrated to, he probably has more power than Gamboa. You know what I mean? At 35, Gamboa can crack, but it's different. Kell Brook has good athleticism, decent speed, and definitely, if you put Kell Brook at welterweight next to Gamboa will look like his son. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, but Crawford has kind of improved since the Gamboa fight. He's, you know what I mean, he picks the right battle, and I haven't really seen him hurt since that fight. So it's really a coin flip. It's hard to bet against Crawford, though, I'm telling you. Next question, the Secular Terrier. After 2 broken eye sockets, does Kell even have a future in the sport? And if he does he move up to 154 after his operation? Taking into consideration he's in his 30s and really struggling to make 147. I'm going to tell you guys like this. As a man, you know what I mean? Just fuck the covering boxing stuff. As a man, I'm not going to tell you what another man can or can't do. Like, that's not in my nature. Like, I never hold people back or hate. I can only give my opinion on a situation. So I can't tell you without a doubt, like, oh, it's done. Like, you know what I mean? Because these fighters are tough, and warriors sometimes rise. Like, people probably said Sergio Martinez was done after he got knocked out badly by Antonio Margarito, and then he went on to beat Kelly Pavlik and embarrass him, a heavy puncher. And he went on to knock out Paul Williams in a crazy one-punch knockout, one of the sickest in boxing history. You know what I mean? In terms of how Paul Williams fell and landed, and how they had a war in the first fight, and how he did that in the rematch. People didn't even want to fight Sergio after that. So I can't say like fully, but I will say this. It's a major uphill battle for Kell Brook at this point, because you had one eye, your right eye, damaged by Golovkin, which required surgery. Now you went up against a powerful southpaw, and you had the opposite eye damaged. So that's 2 eyes, and you lost both of those fights at home. You didn't travel to America and lose and like fight Golovkin at the Forum or something. You lost at home. You lost in the UK both times. And then the last one, the Kell Brook versus Spence Jr., you lost in Sheffield, where you're from. So it's a major uphill battle. The boxing game is a psychological game. He now knows he's no longer undefeated. He had 2 potential eye injuries, and you know what I mean. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know how much time you fully need to cover, because aside from the recovery time, is now that's in the back of your mind. Anytime you get hit and rocked and you get your bell wrong, you might, you know what I mean, that might make you paranoid, right? Like, I'm not, here's a random example. I knew this person that had been in a very bad car accident when they were younger, right? It was a girl I was dating. And whenever, like, let's say there was only a few times, but let's say there was a time where, like, I hit the brake more than, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm driving, and then, like, I hit the brake, or we're in somebody else's car, and the person hit the brakes, and then, you know what I mean, they're coming to a hard brake or hard stop. Not like a crazy, like, just kind of subtle, but you guys know if you drive. Just kind of subtle, like traffic came to a dead stop, and you're like, okay, so you have to hit the brakes a little bit harder, not like come crashing, screeching halt or anything like that. And she would get scared, like, you know what I mean? Like, because she remembered that. She remembered that car accident. So I'm sure anything that even resembles being in a wreck or car trouble, or, you know what I'm saying, she's not really fucking with it. And that's the quick example I could think of off the top of my head with Kell Brook. Every time he's in a fight from here on out against a puncher, and you've had both eyes damaged, like, I'm hearing interviews where he said, like, I didn't want to go blind and stuff. So I think little stuff like that, that's going to chip away, eat away at his confidence. You know what I mean? If the going gets tough, you're in the trenches. And I mean, I understand it, because you're a man. Who wants to be blind? You know what I'm saying? No one would want to go blind. But if you have that and you can't shake that demon, then that's going to be a bad thing, because other fighters who haven't been through that, they never, you know what I'm saying? They don't know what that feels like. So they're not fighting with that in the back of their mind. They don't have that chip on their shoulder, because they never experienced that. So when the going gets tough for them, maybe they just try to stay composed and regenerate energy and, like, you know what I mean, refuel. But I think he's going to have that. He's going to have that, and he has to find a way to conquer it, or otherwise it's going to be very hard. I heard some thoughts about his team saying he's going to move up to 54, but it's really going to be tough fights. I mean, unless he's fighting nobodies. I mean, I think a Miguel Cotto fight would be solid, but that's not a give-me fight. Cotto is still a veteran, but I'm talking about the reason why that's a solid fight is because I think Kell Brook will have probably the best chance with somebody who's at 54 that is not a career 54 pounder. You know what I mean? And, like, huge next to him, like a 6-foot dude. Like, Cotto started at 140 or wherever, so he started in the lighter divisions, and then he eventually, like, ended up at 54. So that would be a good fight. Jared Swift Hurd or something, a new champion, that would be a good fight. But I see him having major problems with Jermell Charlo because he's big. I was at his last fight. I mean, he stretched Charles Hatley brutally, and Hatley wasn't the biggest looking 54 pounder, and he got destroyed. You know what I mean? I think it was a single shot, or it might have been a shot that set it up and then a single hook that ended it. But Charlo's big dude, and he put on some size. You know what I mean? He has to cut weight clearly. Erislandy Lara, you got to look at it. A southpaw at 47 who's a powerful dude. Spence Jr. damaged his left eye, and they say it broke the same thing as the Golovkin, broke his orbital or whatever. And Erislandy Lara's best punch is that straight left. Even though he's economical and sometimes he retreats and he's evasive, watch the Ishe Smith fights and fights where he's like a little bit more aggressive and on the Angulo fights. That straight left is money. You know what I mean? He has one of the best straight lefts. Him, Pacquiao, Adonis Stevenson, they're like premier left-handers with that straight left. So, I mean, straight left to that Kell Brook eye would be bad news. So, I don't really know where Kell Brook goes from here, to be honest. But I think the biggest demon is his confidence. You know what I mean? You said Errol Spence was Jeff Lacey, this and that, and then you lost twice at home. So, that's my honest, true thoughts. Next question, Rafael Maisel. Ego, great fight. I'm thinking Kell takes some time off and comes back at the end of the year. Also, I think he might go up to 54. Thoughts? And that's kind of a continuation to the last question I just answered. yeah, I hear he might go up to 54. I really see it being difficult because all these are challenging fights. Amir Khan said, I'm not fighting at 54 anymore, or I'm not going to fight Kell Brook at 54. So if he can't make the 47 pounds, then that's one other contest that probably won't happen. And then you look at the rest of the guys at 47 and 54, the world's seen Brook Spence was an anticipated fight. Everyone knows how it played out at this point, especially guys in or around the division. So, I mean, people, it's going to sound cutthroat and brutal, but fighters know that something is wrong with you, then they usually target it, you know what I mean? Subconsciously or consciously. You know what I mean? Like, if you, I've seen fights, like, you know what I mean, someone's pawing at their eye or something, then you like punch them in it, you know what I mean? Or if they bend down and hunch down because they got hit to the body, then that must have hurt them. So they target the body or hit the other side. It's kind of common sense. So Kell Brook has a major vulnerability that the world has seen, and there's killers at 47 and 54. So not sure. I think he needs some time to go off. He definitely needs to come back to a very soft touch. Like, I don't even know if you should, well, I was gonna say I don't know if you should fight Amir Khan, but they both came off of pretty bad fights. You know what I mean? Khan was out cold, and then Kell Brook had kind of a repeat injury on the secondary eye, or the second eye. So I don't know. I think he should come back to a light touch, no major names, and try to build back his confidence. Next question, T.Y. King. Channel keeps getting better. You were right about 2017. Thank you. What do you think about Brook's career after this fight and moving up to middleweight? He shouldn't move up to middleweight. And his chances after now suffering eye injuries to both eyes with hard hitters at the top of middleweight, even against someone like Cotto. I think maybe you're talking about 54, but I've been saying, like I said, the biggest thing is confidence. It's not even, like I said, there's an old bodybuilding quote where it's like your brain, your mind will give up before your body does. So your body, you could push. I've seen like athletes and like gymnasts and stuff do crazy stuff with the human body. Like even if you YouTube those dudes in New York that do those street workouts where they're doing like pull-ups and they're doing the flag, where they're holding their whole body stiff and holding their weight up and doing pull-ups with one hand and all types of crazy acrobatic stuff. So the body can do a lot. It's just the mind. And mentally, I don't know where Kell Brook is, and that's going to be his biggest hurdle. He has to be mentally strong to see top competition and win titles after this point. You know what I mean? Because those memories don't just go away overnight. Next question, Jeffrey Guy. What round do you think Floyd Mayweather will knock out Conor McGregor? Now, I don't think the knockout's a foregone conclusion. If Conor starts getting tired, he's gonna get wrecked. But he has size to him. If anything, Floyd is 40. He's not as aggressive, brittle hands, and he's gonna be cautious. So if anything, it would be a late stoppage or almost stoppage, like Robert Guerrero. Like it looked like Floyd was gonna stop Guerrero in like round 7 or something, but he said he hurt his hand. So I would say round 7 to 11ish. And if he can't get it by that, I don't see him getting it, you know what I mean, the last round, because usually Floyd will play it safe, you know what I mean, I'm up on all the cards, I'm not going to give you no opportunity to come back with no Hail Mary type of punch to knock me down or anything. So that's what I would say. I would say late if he does. And usually it's because the UFC has the 5-minute rounds. Conor McGregor would look really gassed in both Nate Diaz fights. So I'm telling you, if he gets to the halfway mark, round 6, and he don't know what he's doing in there, and he's just gassed, and Floyd was like jabbing him to the body, it's going to be bad. It's going to be like Arturo Gatti. Next question, Easy Does It, 1980. Where do you think Brook goes from here? Damn, a lot of people have the same type of question. Do you think him losing to Spence increases the possibility of Brook versus Khan fight? It might. I mean, obviously, for Khan, like this is now, if Khan, I'm not saying he does, I don't know, but to me, it looked like early on, it looked like Brook really wanted the Khan fight, and it didn't look like Khan wanted the fight because he kept setting up roadblocks and hurdles. He was saying, oh, he has to fight a world champion, fight somebody, put someone on your resume. And then he did that by beating Sean Porter in the United States. And then Khan came up with another issue. He said, oh, he beat somebody, he has to beat more people. he has to fight Tim Bradley, or you know what I mean? It says something like that. Why don't you fight Tim Bradley? Then he was like, oh, Eddie Hearn and him are disrespecting me. He'll never get a shot now. You know what I mean? And then now recently Khan's like, oh yeah, we could fill up Wembley and let's make the fight. So if anything, Khan was definitely probably confident because he got stopped twice in his last 2 fights. You know what I mean? I think he's like 1 stoppage away from having as many stoppages as Khan has on his record. So yeah, he's definitely softened up for Khan. So they might try to do it. I feel it's unfortunate because that fight could have been Joshua Wilder big. You know what I'm saying? But that's the thing with these big mega fights is not everyone's Floyd Mayweather, Joe Calzaghe, Rocky Marciano. Not everyone can keep going undefeated. So as the years progress and the fight hasn't been made, this is what could happen. Now Khan got knocked out brutally by Canelo, who he says weighed 30 pounds more than him, a bigger man. Kell Brook had one eye, the right eye, damaged by Golovkin, required surgery, comes back, fights as mandatory, which he should have stayed at the welterweight division, like I told y'all last year, then had his left eye done in by Errol Spence Jr. Now it's 2 guys off of knockouts trying to make the fight. It's not going to be as big. People are going to watch it. The build-up will be cool, and the fight itself might be cool, but it's not going to be anywhere as meaningful. Khan was on a good tear after the Danny Garcia knockout. He got with Virgil Hunter. He beat Carlos Molina bloody. He had beat Luis Collazo first fight at welterweight, looked very sharp, knocked him down 3 times, I think it was. He totally schooled and dominated Devin Alexander, and I thought he looked phenomenal in that fight, and I thought that was at the time a 50-50 fight, right? He looked very good in that. And then he had a rocky performance versus Chris Algieri, waited a year, and then he gets stretched by Canelo. So I mean, his welterweight run wasn't bad until he decided to move up and fight big ass Canelo, and then he ended up getting knocked out. So, and the same thing, Kell Brook, he shouldn't have moved up, and then he did it. Now he's off 2 back-to-back losses. So I don't know where Brook goes. I kind of answered that question, but that's just my thoughts on Brook Khan. I'll watch it, but I'm nowhere near as excited as I would have been if it would have happened when I believe it should have happened, which is a couple years ago. Like, pretty close to after they were both on the Sky Sports talking about what happened in sparring and, oh, don't lie, you know what happened. And they were in the studio. You guys can, I'm sure, find it on the internet somewhere. Next question, Coda Kid. Ego after win from George Groves, do you think we'll get to at least see James DeGale rematch sometime in the future? Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I don't recall exactly what it was, but I heard George Groves saying that the DeGale fight might not happen, but I didn't really look into what he was saying in the interview. But it's a likely fight. They're both domestic UK fighters. George Groves beat him. James DeGale has probably went on to win better fights, or at least have, like, the Andre Durrell fight was a very good win. I think Porky Medina, I think he fought him, knocked him out. He had a very tough fight with Badu Jack. I had him losing, but they said it was a draw, so he retained his title. So it's a fight that should happen. You know what I mean? Badu Jack rematch doesn't look like it'll happen unless he wants to come up to 175. And after he got his teeth knocked out, I don't know that he wants to move up the weight if he wasn't planning on it. You know what I mean? Badu Jack gave him hell in that final round at 168, so I don't think he wants to move up to 75 and give Badu Jack that type of leverage. So let's see George Groves. He's now a champion. It's a grudge match. James DeGale, if you guys go back to that old fight, he was talking a lot of shit during that. He was like saying he was going to do this and that, and then he lost it. So it's a fight that needs to happen. Will it happen? We'll have to wait and see. Next question, Marv Beck. Hey, Ego, great job on the channel. Thank you. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. Man, you got girls out there, and I look forward to your updates, etc. My question for 2017, there were a lot of meaningful fights. I believe Ward Kovalev is the most meaningful, followed by Jacobs, Triple G, and Thurman Garcia. Up to now, which fights do you think are the top 3 meaningful fights of 2017? Well, Ward Kovalev 2, grudge match, and we got to get clarification for some. Some people didn't have Ward winning, some people did. Some people had Kovalev winning, some people didn't. So that's one of them. Canelo Triple G, I'm surprised you didn't mention that particular one. I would say that's one of the most meaningful fights. And I would say Garcia Thurman and Brooks Spence Those are the fights that Joshua Klitschko too. But okay, there's so many. That's how you know it's a good year. Brooks Spence and Garcia Thurman were about equal. Garcia Thurman was very impactful and important because now Keith Thurman has 2 belts, and they were both undefeated. Somebody's had to go, and it was a unification, so it's important for that reason. But Brooks Spence was because we had a very good standing champion with title defenses, and a guy we knew some about, but we didn't know everything. And he just became a champion, Errol Spence Jr. So we had to find that out to see who was what and what was real. That was a big step up. Now we know he's real because he beat Kell Brook in a submission, forced him to quit, and was like kind of tagging him in the last couple of rounds. And then also Joshua Klitschko. That was very meaningful for the heavyweight division. There was another belt other than Joshua's already existing IBF belt that was up for grabs. I think the WBA. And Klitschko, 41-year-old veteran, we know what he's done. We had to see Joshua. That was his step up. That was his Errol Spence moment versus Kell Brook. That was his step up. So those would be the ones that come to mind that's already on the calendar. But Canelo Triple G, I don't know if I explained why, but that just goes without saying. We've been wanting that fight as a boxing public for a year at least, 2 years. Next question, Jim Hustle. Sean Porter versus Lucas Matthysse, what you think? You know what I think. I love it. Interesting contrast of style. Sean Porter only been dropped 1 time by Adrian Broner, who's to me much faster than Lucas Matthysse. Lucas Matthysse, I told you guys in a past video, he beat up on Emmanuel Taylor, looked sharp in doing it. His partnership with Joel Diaz looked solid, but Emmanuel Taylor don't tell me nothing. And that's no shade to Emmanuel Taylor, but he's a career 140-pounder, just like Lucas Matthysse. So that doesn't mean that Lucas Matthysse can swim with the Sharks at 47. Sean Porter, like I said earlier in this video, he fought in the amateurs at 165. So he has to cut back down to, even though he's not the tallest guy, he has to cut down to make the weight. Very rugged. You've seen him with Berto. I was at that fight, covered that fight in New York live. And he'll maul you. And he's clearly strong. Berto at first maybe got off a couple shots. Kell Brook never dropped him. You know what I'm saying? He won 11 rounds out of 12 versus Broner. Right? Sean Porter's proven. He's battle tested. So it's an interesting style. I got to see more from Lucas Matthysse at 47. That Taylor fight don't prove it because it's a mismatch. That's like saying David Lemieux beat Marcos Reyes, who had been knocked out in one of his last 3 fights before the Lemieux fight. That doesn't prove nothing to me. That doesn't mean he'll beat Golovkin in the rematch because he bloodied up Marcos Reyes. Doesn't mean that he could beat Daniel Jacobs because Marcos Reyes is not Danny Jacobs. You know what I'm saying? So I want to see it though. That's a good fight, very good fight. Sean Porter. You know what? Sean Porter has he's like a great barometer test. You know what I mean? He's been in there with Keith Thurman. So if you could pass the Sean Porter test easily, like if Lucas Matthysse beat Sean Porter easily, then I'll be like, oh wow. You know what I'm saying? But so far, no one's really beat Sean Porter easily. You know what I mean? Whether you like his style or not. That's just kind of a fact. Next question. Looking for these better days. Better days 29. What is the word on J-Rock? Is he staying at 154? And is it normal for someone to take this much time off after a loss? Yeah, I do think it's normal. I mean, he just fought in December. December, what is it? January, February, March, April, May. That's 5 months. That ain't shit. You need 5 months off. If you get knocked out, a year off. You know what I mean? Some people take a year. Pacquiao got knocked out, smoothed the fuck out, and it was out over a year after the Juan Manuel Marquez knockout in the 4th fight. So yeah, 5 months ain't really bad. He needs this time off. You know what I mean? Not like I said with the Kell Brook situation. Not only physical, he's good now probably. If you see him, you don't see his bruising or cuts or whatever. But mentally, that's why you need the time off. Spend some time with your family, relax, chill out, analyze your loss, rewatch tape, see what you did right and wrong. Yeah, of course. So maybe it feels like longer, but 5 months, that's nothing. When you were supposed to be the dude, you know what I mean, who could possibly beat Jamal Charlo, and you were like, oh, he said, fight me or vacate, turkey. And you know what I mean? He was calling him out and stuff like that. And then you lose, then you're like, damn, I did all that and I lost. So you got to regroup from that. I haven't heard nothing about J-Rock though, so I don't know when he's fighting, but the amount of time he's taken off is not super aggressive, you know what I mean? Like if he took 2 years off or something, I'd be like, wow, that's too much, you know what I mean? But you get knocked out and knocked down, and in a fight you kind of asked for. It's kind of like Felix Diaz. That's another thing. That's another person that the Jamal Charlo J-Rock situation reminds me of. That Felix Diaz was like, Terence Crawford ducking me. I've been calling him out. He don't want that work. And Terence Crawford like, okay, be careful what you ask for. And Terence Crawford went and bodied that man, stopped him, was playing with him, sticking his tongue out, wasn't giving a fuck. You know what I mean? So I think Felix Diaz should sit down at least 5 months. That's a bad man. Them psychological beatdowns, especially when you call for it, that's almost worse. Because like, let's say I'm the fighter, right? And I'm the #1 mandatory, and they're like, oh, we're putting you in with Weapon X, right? And I'm like, cool. I didn't do a bunch of trash talk and I lose. Okay, cool. I lost. That's different. But let's say the same scenario, I'm the #1 mandatory, and I'm like, Weapon X is a bitch. I'm gonna fuck him up. You know what I mean? I'm like going crazy and talking to him and saying, oh, he's ducking me, he's been ducking me, this and that, and then Weapon X won my ass. Then that's different because you didn't live up. You wrote a check your ass couldn't cash, right? And I'm not throwing shade. I'm just telling you this is how I talk. This I'm just being real, and that's what it is. Like Felix Diaz, you called for, you asked for the Terence Crawford fight, and you get it, and then you lose every round, and then you get stopped. And he was hitting you in the throat and with uppercuts and bombing on bomb first when we ride, reconsider for you die. Like Crawford was going ham. So yeah, I think guys like that, Kell Brook, Felix Diaz, J-Rock, off of their last performances, their last fight, they need to sit down and just reflect, regroup, chill with family, like I said, and then come back stronger. That's how you come back stronger. You come back too quick, it's a wrap. Look at guys like Mike Alvarado, man, and I'm not trying to get too sidetracked, but I just got a lot to say on this subject. Mike Alvarado, you can't take those tough fight after tough fight after tough fight, and then especially when you lose one, you don't give yourself the Bradis Prescott fight. Even though he won it, he almost lost it. His lip was cut all up, and he was like getting lumped up in that fight, even though he turned it around and won. Then he fights Brandon Rios in an all-out classic, instant classic war. And then he loses, gets knocked out by Brandon Rios, contested, has an immediate rematch, fights Brandon Rios again. Rios rocked him, I think, in the second round and buckled his legs. He held on, then went to boxing and beat Rios. And then he fights Ruslan Provodnikov, who made him quit on the stool. That's too much, you know what I'm saying? You can't keep coming back off of them losses real quick and stuff. Your confidence will be all over the place. Next question, Owen Brown. Ego. Outside of Pacquiao, Thurman, and Spence, I hear names like Garcia, Porter, and Peterson. But why isn't there any talks of Tim Bradley in the mix at 147? Bradley is still legitimate, and I recall his only losses have been by the hands of Manny Pacquiao, and there's no shame in that. My ideal fight, to me, a natural matchup, is Bradley versus Sean Porter. Of course, that's a great match. Bradley versus Amir Khan is a great match. Bradley versus Keith Thurman. Bradley has a style. Errol Spence. These are all great fights to me. But in my honest opinion, I love Bradley. I've always been a Desert Storm fan. I can't say always, but I think at the Casamayor fight was when I was like, okay, this dude is kind of nice. Even though it was the older Casamayor, I really respected it. Like the Devin Alexander, I respected those wins, and Lamont Peterson. But I think the Casamayor time was where I really started checking for Bradley and be like, okay, this dude, I like what he did. I like the work he did at 140. But anyway, my honest opinion, Bradley kind of did this to himself. He's kind of a family man, and he kind of stays away from boxing. I interviewed him about a month and a half, 2 months ago at a top rank event. But if it's not maybe a top rank event where he's working or where he has a fighter, he was at that fight because he had a fighter he's mentoring. You know what I mean? Other than that, he kind of stays out the way. You know what I mean? And as a result, people forget. That's why no one's out of sight, out of mind. You guys heard that saying. Everybody heard that saying. Out of sight, out of mind. That's what it is. Bradley last fought, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head, in the freestyle Monday Mail Day session, he last fought in April of last year. That's quite some time. Pacquiao fought again last year. I mean, even though he was the victor versus Bradley, he fought again later that year versus Jesse Vargas. And he is about to fight Jeff Horn in a month or two, in July or whatever, right? And he's a senator. Pacquiao's a senator, so boxing ain't even really his full-time gig. Only, you know what I mean? He has senatorial duties in the Philippines. I do believe I passed that law. You know what I mean? He's doing other stuff, political stuff, and he's still fighting more than Bradley. Bradley, to my knowledge, he might have certain little business ventures and, you know what I mean? But boxing is still, I would say, his primary breadwinner, his primary focus. Last time I checked, Bradley's not like the mayor of Palm Springs or senator or nothing. And he kind of outcasted himself because he's just been relaxing and he's been out off of the scene. So Bradley can make an excellent fight and maybe beat some of these guys, but he's the one that kind of alienated his own self after the Pacquiao third loss. He was just like disappeared. You know what I mean? Like I said, out of sight, out of mind. There's no shade. That's just how I see it. I see if he gets back into a fight and gets back in the people's mind and wins, has a good performance, then he'll be right back there. But as of right now, that's why people aren't throwing him in the mix. We're seeing Errol Spence. Like, Errol Spence had a 9-month, listen to this. Errol Spence had a 9-month layoff before fighting Kell Brook, from the Bundu to the Brook fight, because Kell Brook had medical extensions. He was still deciding if he wanted to fight his mandatory. And with the 9-month layoff, Errol Spence actually fought after Bradley. He fought Bundu in like August. So if August to the Brook Spence this weekend fight was 9 months, then how long has Bradley been off? Close to a year? Oh, it's actually been over a year. You know what I'm saying? So that's why, because he hasn't been active. Next question, D Bevel the Champ. Yo, Ego, congrats on the 80,000 subscribers, 100K on the way. And you do notice, man. But thank you. Question 1. The WBC is the most prestigious title in boxing, but if you could rate which titles are the most prestigious from 1 to 4, what would it be? WBC, WBA, IBF, WBO. That is very hard, because I can't, like, the way my brain works, I would probably be thinking about who's holding that title in each division. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard, but I would say WBC would probably be the number one. Everybody likes the green belt. And the 2, I'm trying to think of who the rankings, like who's the IBF champion. So it was Kell Brook, now it's Errol Spence. Anthony Joshua has an IBF. Who else? Golovkin has an IBF. I'm trying to think of all the guys who have IBF belts in each division. I think Lee Selby. So I'll probably say IBF number 2, because I can think of, I mean, those are all Anthony Joshua, Golovkin, Errol Spence now. It used to be Kell Brook. Yeah, all the IBF champions sound like real winners. So I would say that. WBA, Keith Thurman has a WBA. I believe Abner Mares. Yeah, so I'm gonna put that 3. WBC, IBF, WBA, and I guess WBO, because they tripping, because they making Pacquiao Jeff Horn, and I think Cotto versus Kamagai, if I'm not mistaken. So that's my order, because I don't like those fights at all, and I don't even know why. How is Kamagai even ranked to the point where he's fighting for the Cotto for the WBO? So yeah, WBO, you got last now. Question 2. After Canelo Golovkin match is over, do you see Golden Boy Promotion having no choice but to do business with Al Heyman due to Canelo not having anyone else to fight on HBO other than Lemieux? Your thoughts? I don't know. That's really a Golden Boy thing. You'd have to speak with them. Me, all I know is in business, some people are stubborn. You look at the first Cold War, where it was Al Heyman versus Golden Boy and Richard Schaefer and De La Hoya, and those were great fights that could have been made. Adrian Broner versus Brandon Rios. Now I don't know if people would have interest in it, but back then, they were both shit talkers and talking shit online. You had classic matches that could have been made that fell by the wayside. Now they're not even relevant to be made. You know what I mean? And all because of what? So it's hard telling, because in business, it's a pissing contest, and some people are so prideful that they'll never work with the other person. You know what I mean? You sued somebody. It's just like Nas signing to Jay-Z after they had beef. People like, damn, Nas has to sign it to Jay-Z's label. Jay-Z won the beef. You know what I mean? So some people don't want to go out like that. So they'll do everything they can, even if that means sinking the ship, in order to not work with the other side. So I can't really speak. That's up to Eric Gomez and Diaz and Oscar De La Hoya, what they want to do, if that is the question. If there's no compelling matchups, and that's up to them, how much of a grudge they want to hold, or if they want to make this money. So next question, Trush Tucker. Ego, great channel, not biased, thank you. Only the facts and truth, and also realistic opinion. Which fight more likely to happen, Pacquiao versus Crawford or Pacquiao versus Spence? Neither. But if I had to pick, Pacquiao Crawford. The reason being, Errol Spence is at 147 already. Crawford isn't. Doesn't have experience at the 147 as a pro, to my knowledge. I don't remember him fighting at 47 ever. So Crawford would be the guy who has no experience at 47, and he's already on the top ranked side of things. Errol Spence is bigger to me. He's also a southpaw, born southpaw. Crawford's ambidextrous, and he's just overall, he just looked too much pressure, and he's on the other side of the fence. Plus, Bob Arum has at least talked about making Pacquiao Crawford and wanting to make it. I never even hear Bob Arum barely mention Spence, and I do think he did mention Spence on ESPN First Take one time, and he said, "Oh, now Spence, he's a good fighter, but he hasn't beat anyone." You know what I'm saying? So to me, you don't want no smoke with Spence, because you downplayed him, even though he's a champion. Like I said, based on who Pacquiao is currently fighting, I don't really think Team Pacquiao is looking to make those crazy fights. They're going to try to milk it, run-of-the-mill fights, and then maybe cash him out to fight Crawford. And if he loses, then he'll probably go into retirement. Next question, Eli Baz. Ego, I personally think there are many killers at 147, too many killers for Crawford to move up now. Also, in my opinion, Spence reached a new realm in that fight and should be even more dominant in his fights to come. Second part of your comment, yeah, those Joshua Klitschko, Spence Brook, people keep bringing up how Joshua struggled or got knocked down, or Spence was losing the early rounds, but those are learning fights. Those will make the fighters better. In fact, to me, if Floyd Mayweather, people like that, who, and I use Floyd because everyone knows him, and he's a known elite level fighter, known great fighter, and if he didn't have those tough fights with Emmanuel Augustus, Emmanuel Burton, if he didn't have those tough fights with DeMarcus Chop Corley or Zab Judah, then he probably wouldn't be the Floyd he is today, right? That's what makes you and molds you, whether you win or lose. Floyd won all those fights, but those still made him better. Zab Judah made him work. DeMarcus Chop Corley hurt him and made him work. Even if you win those fights, they still build character. So I think Spence, the fact that he didn't feel as sharp and gave himself a B- and was losing more rounds than he was winning early, that's going to help him. That's going to help him in the long run. If he just went and blew Kell Brook out, then he might be like, you can't tell me nothing. This might make him go back to the gym and work even harder, review tape, see what he could sharpen up on. So I agree with that. Too many killers for Crawford to move up. A lot of people keep saying this, like, oh, Crawford's too small, but Floyd's smaller than Crawford, and he's fought bigger guys. Pacquiao's way smaller than Crawford, and he's fought bigger guys. Skill pays the bills. So Crawford, I'm not gonna say it's easy, but based on his skill level to me looks next level. Like, it doesn't look average. It don't look like some average skills you can join your local YMCA and train for 6 months and be at that level. He looks like he does a lot of things very good, and he seems to gain confidence. So Crawford's a live dog versus anyone, even moving up. It's just, we have to see, like, just like Canelo Triple G. Can Canelo take Triple G's? He has better skills than Triple G to me. Can he take Triple G's punch? Well, I mean, we have to wait and see. Next question, Obed Justi. You think the Triple G fight was a factor in the Brook Spence fight? Yeah, I mean, you can't. Oh man, that would be like I said earlier, Sergio Martinez versus Cotto. That's like saying, oh, Cotto or Sergio's knee had nothing to do with the fight outcome. Like, I don't think that. Obviously, the Golovkin fight did something. This is no credit taken away from Errol Spence, because Kell Brook made weight. He looked good at the weight. He looked, to me, bigger than Errol Spence at the night of the fight. He was winning the early rounds. He just didn't win the battle of attrition. And Errol stayed composed, even though he was losing probably more rounds. He wasn't losing. You got to see, a lot of people get boxing twisted. They act like Spence was getting dogged in those early rounds. He didn't look as sharp. He even admits that. He didn't look as sharp as he wanted to, and he was losing some rounds, but he was not getting body bagged. You know, he wasn't like, oh, he's drunk and he's getting punched into the ropes and taking knees, and it wasn't nothing like that. He was just being outboxed, getting clipped with some good shots. Kell Brook is crafty. I expected that. You know what I mean? But when he ramped up his energy level and his aggression, Kell Brook seemed to really take notice to that, and it just got worse and worse for him. His eyes started to get in bad shape real fast. So about the 6th, 7th round, that's when Kell Brook started, that wear and tear was like starting to come in. But yeah, I mean, you got to factor in the Golovkin fight. If nothing else, like aside from a physical injury sustained in that fight, his confidence. You were no longer undefeated. So I told you guys that in the 7 reasons. Obviously, when the going gets tough, you're in the trenches. My 7 reasons was pretty legit on this one. You know what I mean? When the going gets tough, you have that to revert back to. Errol Spence has Leonard Bundu and I knocked out Chris Algieri better than Pacquiao. He doesn't have those same memories, because I don't think he's really tripping off of what happened in sparring or what happened in his amateur career. So he doesn't have those same memories. So yeah, the Golovkin fight, moving up dramatically and then moving down, the psychological effects of taking your first L and then getting a physical injury, I do think that hurt him, as opposed to if he just stayed his ass at welterweight. Let's say he fought and beat Jesse Vargas, then he wouldn't have a loss in confidence or whatever. And that was the final question. Try to get to a lot of questions. Happy Memorial Day. Let me know how you guys think I did this week. I'll be back next week. Drop it in the comment section. A lot of good stuff. I think Adonis Stevenson's fighting Andre Fonfara rematch this week. So we'll be back. Let me know how you think I did. Make sure you smash the like button. Hit the like. Likes matter. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video, is Ego signing off.